A 2 days multi-agency operation at Caribbean International Brewery Company located in the village of Carmelita in Orange Walk led to the confiscation of $3.1 million in cash and the detention of 8 Chinese nationals on Friday. According to Commissioner of Police Chester Williams, the raid was carried out by the Labor Department, Immigration Department, Police, and the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Council after intelligence was received.
We had received some information in respect to activities that may be occurring at that particular beer factory. Based on that, we put together a multi-agency task force headed by police and comprised of immigration, labor, FIU, income tax, as well as personnel from the ATIPS unit. They went in on the strength of a search warrant to conduct searches, looking for anything that may indicate the presence of human trafficking or money laundering within the particular establishment. Searches were conducted, and the search led to the discovery of over $3.1 million Belize dollars, that also comprised of U.S. currencies. Also found were a number of Asian nationals who had immigration violation in respect to their stay in Belize, and that includes the owner of the factory.
Those persons who were found to have violated immigration laws were charged on Friday for failure to comply with visitors' permit. They pled not guilty to the charge and were all remanded to prison until their next court date. As for the hefty sum of money found in the company's safe, it was handed over to the Financial Intelligence Unit.
I think sometime this week they will apply to the court for permission to seize the money pending the outcome of money laundering investigation. Again, that's a process that will be required to go through the courts. And once the court give the go-ahead for the money to be seized while the investigation is ongoing, then they will look more in depth in terms of whether or not the company were in compliance with the financial laws, i.e. filing taxes and paying the fair share of tax as the case may be. Also important to note was that it was also learned that the employer may have been withholding the passports of at least 8 employees. And again, that is an element of human trafficking. But so far, we have been trying to get those employees to cooperate with investigators, and that effort has been futile so far.
But the company is claiming that authorities only had a warrant to search for illegal labor, and so the seizure of the $3.1 million is illegitimate. The company claims to have receipts showing how the money was obtained from sales of beer carried out in September. As for the men detained, the company says they all have a legal status. 4 of them were trapped here since COVID. They were brought to Belize to install an equipment for the company. After the job was done, they were unable to return to China due to COVID travel restrictions. The men, according to the company, had the flights booked to return to China via Mexico today, October 11th. As for the other 4 employees, we understand they had applied for Belizean residency in June and remain employed by the company with an extension work permit. But for Commissioner of Police Chester Williams, it's their word against that of the department.
You and I know that the COVID restrictions have been lifted since, I think, March this year. And since then, we have not had any strict COVID restrictions in terms of restricting the movements of people in and out of the country. So certainly, if it were that they...
I think I mean in China, though.
Well, I don't know. Then that's another issue with them and their country. But Even if that were the case, the immigration department in Belize is open, and if they wanted to stay longer due to unforeseen circumstances back in their country, then they could have visited the immigration department and asked for an extension, and I am sure that they would have received the extension. So that is no excuse. And in addressing the first issue, we don't live in the U.S. In the U.S., when the police have a warrant to go and search for, let's say, hypothetically, drugs, and if during the search they were to come across illegal firearms, their law requires that they must go and get a warrant to retrieve the illegal firearms because the warrant that they have would be for drugs. In Belize, in law we refer to it the fruit of the poison tree. Is applicable in Belize. The fruit of the poison tree is not applicable in the U.S. And what that simply means is that if the police have a warrant to go and search for drugs, and the police were to come across illegal firearms, the law requires the police to confiscate the firearms and can still take action in respect thereof. We don't have to go and get a warrant for the firearms. On the strength of the same warrant that we have, we can confiscate the firearms. And so the fruit of the poison tree is admissible in our courts in Belize, and it is not admissible in the U.S. So if it were that they were to be living in the U.S., then they certainly would have a good case to argue. But we are living in Belize, so that argument is certainly dead on arrival at the courts. In respect to the money and them having receipts, it's an ongoing investigation. I'm sure that if it is that they can produce receipts indicating the collection of that sum and to show that they have paid their fair share of taxes, then the income tax and the FIU department are going to release the funds back to them. But they have an investigation to conduct to make sure that the collection of the money is, one, legal, and two, that taxes were paid.
As for the allegations that the operation was carried out maliciously, Williams had this to say.
Certainly, there is no monopoly where the sale of beer or any alcohol in the country is concerned. The fact that they came in and were issued a license to operate such business clearly shows that there were support from the government for them to do so. For them to make such an assertion without proof, I think they are being malicious, one, and two, they're trying to tarnish the good name of the police department, as you pointed out. If it were that there was nothing, then I could understand. But certainly, the information proved success because, one, there were immigration violations there, and two, a large sum of money was there, which they will now have to prove how it came into their custody and if they had paid taxes on it. So to say that it was malicious, I think that assertion is certainly far-fetched, and we completely deny that assertion.